Hi, my name is Jill Zajac. I'm the Patient Education and Program Manager here at the Pulmonary Hypertension Association, and we are going to take some time today to discuss Holiday Headspace, our Caregiver Edition. We we want to inform you on some tips and tricks and just overall mental health awareness for the holiday season and all year long. This is a series on our PHA Classroom, which can be found on our page. And we invite you to listen in and to, share with us your own caregiver tips and hints. Okay. Joining us today is Michelle Freeman. She is a caregiver for her husband who has pulmonary arterial hypertension. She's also a support group leader from Central Oregon, and she is a facilitator for the PH Caregiver online call. In addition, she is a licensed professional counselor who specializes in individuals with chronic illness. So I will turn it over to Michelle to continue our talk on Holiday Headspace.
Hi, everybody. So our learning objectives for today is recognize contributors to psychological stress, understand limitations, develop coping skills, learn about mental health resources, and learn to connect with support in person, online, or by telephone through PHA. So right now we have holiday stressors, especially between Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's going to be a lot of that added stress. And there's a difference between everyday routine and added expectations. And these expectations are work. Many of us as caregivers are employed. We have medical appointments. We also have more social events than typical. And we have weather changes. Many of us, like where I live, there's snow, a lot of rain that slows it down. There's grocery shopping, cooking. There's cleaning the house. And there's gift shopping and wrapping, hosting family gatherings, or even going to family gatherings, attending church services, changing the amount of daylight, and non-routine events. There's also traditions that people have. And all these things are in addition, as we brought up, to your numerous things that encompasses your life being a caregiver, all the aspects of it, because this is a 24/7 job. And then there's let's go into caregiver demands. What being a caregiver means. When you go online and look up the definition, they'll say something like it's a family member or paid person who's taking care of a child or person with chronic medical conditions or disabilities. But I would also add, just what I had said about the previous slide, is that this is a 24/7 job for many people. And also it's a job that starts increasing over time as the PH patient becomes more ill, especially like a spouse. You start having to take over some of the duties. Usually, one person does one thing, one person does other things around the house, and then it becomes slowly where the caregiver has to start assuming all the responsibilities that used to be shared. And this so becomes actually more stressful over time. And then there's the difficulty with balancing caregiver demands with other responsibilities. Again, many of us are working. We also have other family members we need to take care of. We also have other things that come up in life, just the day-to-day things, unexpected things that you have to take care of. And it's important to recognize what the stressors are, because we get so involved in our job, we're just doing more, we become real responsible that we don't even recognize that more and more things are being piled upon us. And it's important to recognize which stressors are controlled and which are uncontrollable. So identifying and understanding psychological stress. It's important to recognize negative emotions. And let me go into what emotions are. Emotions are simply reactions from how we perceive something. That's why we react differently to things. One person will react a little differently to the same circumstance. But when it becomes negative is when it's starting to take a toll on us. It's because we perceive it as something we don't like or don't want to do. And so it's important to start recognizing when you start slipping into having too many negative emotions. It's important to recognize your triggers and also to create boundaries, because we get so involved in our jobs and trying to balance everything and to do everything that we aren't even recognizing that we're being triggered. And then it's important to notice normal fluctuations in mood and feelings versus the symptoms of psychological conditions. And what that is normal reactions is it's normal to become anxious. And if weren't anxious in any aspect, we would walk out into traffic. We need those things to tell us something is wrong. But when it gets to the point that it's affecting you physically, like I can't sleep anymore, or I'm starting to look for more things that are self-medicating, like eating more or drinking more, or not eating, not drinking, you're starting to go into a psychological condition. And of course, if we don't recognize those things and we just keep doing more and more and more because we think we can handle it or we feel we should handle it, then we can run into caregiver burnout. And the trouble with caregiver burnout is you're fried. If any of you remember that commercial many years ago, they would crack an egg into a frying pan and say, this is your brain on drugs. Well, no, that's what happens to you when you're on burnout. You're just fried. So it's important to acknowledge stressors. And stress can rear its head at any time. Anxiety can just suddenly pop up. Depression just suddenly happen to you. But especially during the holidays, this is a very high stress time for anybody. So it becomes more stressed if you're a caregiver. And it can manifest in both physical and psychological ways. And these signs include guilt, worry, anxiety, feeling sad, feeling overwhelmed or constantly worried, irritability or unexpected changes in mood, losing interest in the activities you enjoy, gaining or losing weight, changes in appetite, overexerting yourself, poor sleep or not getting enough sleep, physical aches and pains, abusing alcohol or drugs, including prescription medications, and having frequent headaches, body pain, or other physical problems. And again, the difference is between normal reactions, emotional reactions to events, and when it goes into a psychological condition is when it starts affecting your performance, how you view life, and you notice that these are becoming more and more frequent, like all the time. Then you know you've crossed the line into becoming clinically depressed or adjustment disorder. I'm not reacting really well to what's happening in my life. And so it's important to set limits. And this is really hard because being a caregiver, you do everything. So it's really hard to go, no, I don't do this. We just start taking all the duties on. And so it's important to set realistic expectation and focus on what's the most important. In fact, what I consider the gift of PH for patients and caregivers is it makes you become aware of what's really important in life. You have to make those decisions. You have to start bringing in a balance of things you like or want to do versus things you have to do. And so one of the things that's important is start prioritizing self-care, that you have to really put that in as an important part of your life, because most caregivers, including myself, tend to just do more and more. I take care of things. I'm really good at handling all the appointments, calling doctors, getting the meds and taking care of what needs to be done, that I take care of myself last because there's not enough time. And you really have to make it a part of your daily routine. And it'll take a bit. It took me several months to finally be comfortable with adding going to the gym at night as much as possible, for even if it's 20 minutes, into my normal routine, because I feel guilty. There's so much to do. And then it's important to practice communicating the limits. And this again starts with knowing, what do you need? What's important to you? If you had a perfect life, what needs would be taken care of? And then deciding which of those 5, 10 needs are the most important. You're not going to be able to do it all, but know, what are the things that I really need? Is sleep really important to me? Then I got to make sure I've got it into my daily routine. And I have to tell people that this is important. That's the other thing a lot of caregivers don't do, is they don't tell people what they need. And so it's important to understand what you need so that you are an effective caregiver, and to start asking for it. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that's important to learn. And so strategies for dealing with caregiver stress. It's important to only control what's controllable, because there's so much with this disease that you can't control. It's out of your hands. And so recognizing, as I put, what are your battles? You can't win all of them, so decide what are the most important ones. And then give yourself a break. And again, that goes back to communicating needs. No is a complete sentence, but it's hard for us because just being a caregiver, who we are, we take care of things. We're service oriented. It's part of who we are. And so again, it's hard to stop, but you got to give yourself a break, because if you don't, you could get sick. And I've seen it where the PH patient caregiver now becomes the patient. The roles can reverse, and that's not a good situation. So it's important to ask and accept help when it's offered. You can't do it alone. And so we've got to let go of these expectations of what we think a perfect caregiver should be. We're harder on ourselves than what other people are. We have this image that we think we have to project, and that can get us into trouble. Nobody's a perfect caregiver. And so it's important to, again, ask for help. And if someone offers it, accept help. Also, change guilt to regret. Guilt is something when you did something wrong. Regret is that you were in a difficult situation and you didn't make exactly the right decision, but they're not wrong. You did the best you could with the information you had. And again, this is a mind trip. It's real important to do these things, because otherwise you will start worrying more. You're going to start becoming guilt, and that is a slippery slope. It'll be like being on a hamster wheel. It's really hard to get off of it. And then last, forgive yourself often. Again, nobody is perfect. We don't have the definitive book of being a perfect caregiver. There is nothing. We're not going to always make the right decision. We're not always going to react well. I've had people say to me that I act very calm, but I'll tell people, oh no, I've had what I call my hissy fits. I don't react all the time the right way. And you have to recognize it and forgive yourself, and also be kind to yourself. Treat yourself as if you would treat someone else in the same circumstance. We're way harder on ourselves than other people would be. And so it's important to be kind to yourself and treat yourself as if you're a friend of yourself. So there's a lot of coping mechanisms. These are the ones I tell clients, and these are the ones that I find work. I have found that coping mechanisms must be simple, it must be quick, and it must be something that you can train yourself to learn to do this. And so let me go into the last part, which is important. So if you do have a moment, it's real important to try practicing these skills so they become automatic. So from this list that's on this slide, the two, if you can remember anything from this webinar, are the first two. These are the most important. The first thing is you have to tell yourself you're choosing to do this versus I have to do this. This will completely change your attitude, because so much of us get caught up with resentment. I'm angry that I have to do it. I didn't sign up for this. And also, or we're taking so much on, we have no time for ourselves, we become frustrated, and this is a normal reaction to things. And so if you tell yourself when you reach those moments, I'm choosing to do this, and also it's good to know why you're choosing to do this. That makes this a whole lot easier to handle, especially when it becomes very stressful. And then the second thing is pursed lip breathing. This is the best breath you can ever do in your life. It's good for PH patients. It's good for you without PH. And what this is, it's again the perfect breath. You're breathing in through your nose. Hopefully that's possible, because that actually creates chemicals that open the lungs up so that you get more air into your lungs. And then you breathe out through your lips as if you're gently blowing out a candle very slowly, or you're moving a feather, you're trying to move it. Now, what the key is that you have to breathe out longer than you breathe in. Make sure that's way longer than breathing in. And what that does, it stimulates the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that goes from your gut up to your brain. And this is the nerve when you're under fight or flight or very stressed, it becomes overstimulated and makes you very anxious. And what the pursed lip breathing does is that it naturally calms you down. So it's something that works very quickly, and the more you practice it, the sooner it works. So it's like learning to play a musical instrument. You can't take one lesson and go, I'm good to go, I can now play professionally. You got to practice it. And what you want is the body memory of the reaction, and it'll help you. And again, those are the most important things being a caregiver. And then the next thing is mindfulness meditations. And why they work is that if you're doing it right, you can't think of something else. It stops the thought. Because when we get upset, worried, depressed, our thoughts start racing in our minds, or our thoughts get shut down. And again, those things are hard to stop. And so my favorite mindfulness meditation is that you could do this with pursed lip breathing, is breathe in and breathe out like you're supposed to, but watch your breathing. What is it like when you breathe in? Does your nostrils flare? Do you feel oxygen going in? What happens when it goes down to your lungs? What muscles move? Watch your breath as if you had to describe it to somebody. And this is a real good thing to do. Now, if you're driving and you become stressed, or in situations like that, you may not be able to do it. So then be aware of what you're doing as if you had to write down all the steps. For example, driving, what am I doing as I'm driving? How do I press a pedal? How do I really do this? Because so many things we do automatically. And what the mindfulness meditation does is that it stops your thoughts. And again, this is something you should do several times during the day. And for the optimal thing is 2 minutes. It seems to help better. But again, if it's just for a few moments, it will help you. And again, the more you do it, the better you'll become at it. And then the next thing is, I'll go back to mindfulness meditation. And the other thing that they found is that when people do this, they notice dramatic improvement within about 2 weeks. You'll notice its effects right away, but people will notice that they start handling things better. It actually, again, calms you down. And then the next thing is smiling. There's actually a lot of research behind smiling. And what it does is it starts activating the dopamine receptors. And what that does is it'll start calming you down. You're going to feel better. And it also releases endorphins, and it lowers your blood pressure. So it starts taking away those chemicals in their body and the chemical reactions when you become stressed. Now, the other thing is a fake smile is okay. It just takes a little bit longer for the reaction to happen, but we do know that it works. There's a lot of scientific evidence behind it. And another thing that'll help you is that putting smiley faces around in different places will also activate it, or pictures of people smiling. There actually was a study where a person was in an MRI, and they were watching how the brain reacted when a person was smiling. And then what was interesting is they were almost done with the procedure when someone smiled at the person in the MRI, and the person in the MRI didn't smile, but their brain activated as if they were smiling. So again, pictures of people smiling will also help you. Another thing that helps is humor, laughter. And this relaxes the whole body, again, triggers endorphins, it diffuses anger, lowers stress hormones, eases anxiety and tension, strengthens resilience, and it boosts T cells and also relieves pain. So this is a kind of an extension of smiling. And again, the key is at least 2 minutes. So go online, there's a lot of good information that substantiates these claims. Another trick that's really cool to do is chewing gum. And again, studies have shown that it lessens depression, it improves your memory, and it reduces anxiety, depression, fatigue, and confusion. And there's studies that show it. It's like all these other things. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And they showed all those things definitely happening with people that chewed gum for 2 weeks. So it's a good thing to start. Plus, it's good for your digestion. It starts the reaction in your body so you digest foods better. And then another thing that you can do that will help you, and this works wonderfully for depression, is to sit down and remember something good or pleasant that happened to you for 2 minutes. All the details, just go over and over it again. And why this works is we, by default, remember negative things more than remember positive things. And this is something that's been developed in us over the centuries because our ancestors had to be aware of their environment. They had to be aware of, were there animals around that could kill them? Was the weather changing? Was the food supply going away? So by default, our brains are negative. It's easy to go into it and remember all those negative things that happen, but we don't remember the positive. And so by making a practice of remembering something good that happened to you for 2 minutes, we'll start getting rid of those other memories and taking the emotional charge out of them. So that goes into writing about stressful experiences. There was a study around 1996 that the American Medical Association did. And what they had people do that were in the study was write about their stressful experiences. And these were people with a chronic condition. It was asthma and rheumatoid arthritis. And what they discovered was that after 4 months, the physical symptoms of those diseases were starting to lessen. They didn't get over their disease, but they were not having as bad physical reaction to the disease. So there's been a lot of other studies done with psychological conditions, and we find the same thing happens. It reduces anxiety, it reduces depression, it reduces those negative emotions by simply writing it down. Now, this does not have to be a lengthy journal. How I do it is the simple way. If I'm really upset, I have a blank piece of paper, and it may be only a couple of lines. It could be, I'm just so ticked off about what happened. And I also write over it so you can't read it again, especially if I'm anxious about or upset about something that a family member did. And I just scribble on this page, writing it out. Sometimes it's one long sentence that I write over and over again. And this is a short period of time, and it gets it out of your system. So it doesn't have to be a real long journal. It doesn't have to be page after page, because again, the danger of that is then you're impressing that negative memory into your brain as if you're branding it in, and you don't want to do that. You just want to get the anger out. And then the next and last thing is reframe how you think about the problem or situation. And what I think about that, what I mean about that is again, go into I'm choosing to do this. Is this really true? Is this really as bad as what I think it is? Or another way to do it is to think back to a time when everything basically went totally wrong. Change one thing in the memory. This also works for pain. One thing in the memory, because what the trouble is our brain doesn't remember everything exactly the way we think it is. We have an essence of it. We have the emotional experience that happened. And every time we think about a memory, we recreate it again. And so what you want to do is change something in that memory, be it what you were wearing, how you reacted, so that you start taking the emotional charge out of it. This also works well for grief, that you want to be able to remember what happened, but you don't want to have that emotional angst that comes with it. And so, again, changing one thing in the memory works, just something where it happened, how you reacted, again, what you were wearing. Or another favorite thing I like to do is imagine that I've taken a big fire hose to it and I hose the thing down so I start changing it, or a blowtorch to it. You can do that. And then I imagine this bulldozer after I do it, shoving it apart. Now, why that works is you can't be logical with your brain to get over anxiety and depression or emotional stress. The brain loves symbology. So that's why it likes the symbolism of that. And you can make up your own way of doing it, but that's why that works. And if you do it over and over again, it will start lessening the angst with it so that you can really look at it and go, what really happened? What needs to be changed? How should I react in the future? And so that's my list that I give to everyone, including all my clients, and what I do every day to handle the stress in my life. So these are other great coping mechanisms that to do whenever possible. And these are going to be choice things. One of the things I find that when you have a moment of time is to write a list of what you want to do when you get your free moment, because you will forget it. And it's important to rank it according to importance. Think about when you go to the grocery store and you know, I got to get milk. But when you get there, you see, oh, there's this big sale, these other things going on, and you get home and you didn't buy the milk. It's the same kind of idea. You got to have a list so that when you've got a moment, oh my God, I can do something I want to do, you need to look at the list and go, that's what I want to do. Because guaranteed you will forget what you really want to do when that moment appears. And then the other thing is set personal health goals. And again, just like I experienced, you're not always going to get it in. But if you start doing that and having, what would I want to do in a perfect day if I could choose, you will start adding it into your program. You'll still do it. And so it is so important to have a good sleep routine, because sleep is the most important thing. If you don't get good sleep, you're not going to react good to anything. You're not going to remember things. You're going to reach burnout quicker. And they've actually shown with studies that a person who is sleep deprived is actually worse on the road than somebody who's drunk. So it really does affect you. That really try to get good sleep habits and get time to sleep. And then also find the time to be physically active. And this is important because walking, even something simple as walking, is the best therapy. We find, again, I like simple things that are free, and that's something that works really well. And again, if you can't, let's say you have physical limitations, there are things even online like Tai Chi in a chair. There's simple things that you can do. And so do something every day whenever you can, because I'll admit, there's going to be times that there's things going wrong. You're in the ER. There's an operation you didn't expect. You're not going to have time for self-care. But if you get these habits in, it'll help you with the recovery periods of those stressful times. And then again, it's important to eat a healthy diet, because we know from eating too many carbohydrates, that actually affects your breathing. it has too much carbon dioxide in your blood. And so it's real important to have as healthy a diet as possible. And of course, lastly, drink plenty of water, because if you're dehydrated, your body doesn't work well. And that will cause you to become anxious and depressed. And then utilize other coping skills. Sit down and look at what works for you, because you're going to like different things than other people in the same stressful situations. And again, meditation. There's numerous kinds of meditation besides what I brought up being the mindful one. There's guided imagery, listening to relaxing music, listening to sounds of nature that are calming. And again, those things do work. In less than a week, people notice that they're feeling better. Acupressure works really well too. Knowing stress points on the body, tapping the cheeks, tapping under the collarbones, tapping the side of the hands are ways to reduce your stress reaction, and they do work. Yoga, if you can do it. Qigong, Tai Chi, things like that. We know there's a lot of body of evidence help. But again, if you don't have the time, it may be impossible. That's one thing why I favored some Qigong exercises, because things like that can be done in 5 minutes or less. And again, there's a lot of really good online resources on those things. Hobbies are good. What I like about hobbies is it could also be your self-care time. Your real self-care time is that you're doing something you want to do. And again, what you're going to find is your hobby is going to be something generally that you have control over. I find what I do to relax is something that, like doing a puzzle, that I have control over. Because so much of your life is out of control. But again, this is a good thing to bring back those things that you like to do, and do it even if it's only for a minute. Prayer works really well. There's a lot of good studies showing that prayer does have an effect on people, a positive one, and also on yourself. Again, going into walks. It's free. Walking, it's good for you, for anybody. Grateful journaling is good. And that I also would add to the stressful journal, because again, you don't want to get caught into how bad your life is. It is good to go, what is going on in my life that is good, even if it is one good thing. Now, this goes into also something that I learned the hard way during a time when my grandson, as an infant, had open heart surgery. I got so involved with what was going on that I didn't notice that we were in this beautiful old mansion. That's where the Ronald McDonald House was, and I didn't pay attention to it. So one thing that I do is, besides what I'm grateful for, I will stop and go, what is good that's going on around me? Because the garbage that's going on, the stress that's going on, a lot of it's going to resolve itself. And so now I try to also do a one moment of what is good that's happening right now in this moment. And it could be that I have clean air to breathe, but just start finding one good thing. Or I'm in a place where there's flowers blooming, or the sky, it's a beautiful sunset. It's real good to notice those things. And so that can also be part of your journaling. What did I notice during the day that was really good? And then this is a big thing now, drawing, coloring books, art, those things really help people. And again, if you're doing it right, you're concentrating on what you're doing, and you're not thinking about the stressful situation that's going on right now. So find what you want to do. For some people, it could be, if you have the conditions, fishing. It could be anything. But go ahead and get a list. Put this on your list of what you want to do when you've got that moment. So the next thing that's real important, and all these things are important, is you need a support system. You cannot do this on your own. fact, this is one of the problems with our society now is we've gotten away from communities. We used to have those kinds of things. That's why, like in the West, in the pioneer times, they would get together for church and get together every week because they had to have communities. And you have to have one to be sane and to not be stressed and to be in a better place while being on this path of being a caregiver for a person with PH. And so it's you can find, and this is what I really like about PH, the association, PHA. They have many things that you can take advantage of. So it's real important to get into a support group or to start a support group, because you need to have people around that understand what you're going through. And there's a lot of things that we're going to go into where to find it on the PH site. But there's the PH support lines. There's one for caregivers. There's one for patients. There's also one for caregivers with children with PH, and one in the Spanish. There's lots of different support lines. And there's other kind of support lines online, other kind of caregiver ones. Find the ones you like and actively participate with it. And then lastly, when and where to seek professional help. Everybody has their limits. There's still this stigma against going to a professional because you can't handle the stress in your life. There's still that bite the bullet kind of thing, or I'm not crazy, I'm not like that. But the thing is, we have to start thinking of mental health just like physical health. Yes, I can take care of a cold on my own, but if I have pneumonia, I am going to have to get antibiotics. And it's the same thing with being a caregiver. Yes, we can all handle anxiety and depression on our own. There's a lot of good things that are, again, these techniques. But when it gets to the point that my health is being compromised, I find that I am becoming angry with everyone, or I'm frustrated a lot. Then it's time to go get help. And again, when you look into that, find someone you can relate to, because we're all very different. Some therapists like doing the mindfulness yoga things. Other people like talking all the time. Others like somatic things. We're all very, very different. And so really find someone that you feel comfortable with, that you feel safe with, because that's so important for you to feel better. Also, sometimes in areas there's groups that you can go to. So check out your local hospital. See, do they have other kinds of groups that I can go into? And then another place to look at is your palliative care organizations. We think that they're just with hospice, but that palliative care really is dealing with a chronic illness or something that's happening over a long period of time. And many of them have resources. They have people that can come out and basically babysit for a while. There's a lot of them have free people that are volunteers that will do this. And a lot of things can also come to your house, like even for the PH patient, that you don't have to always go to the doctor, that they can have visiting nurses come out and help take care of things. Because as you know, traveling with a PH patient can be difficult. You got to remember everything, the meds and everything, and it's not always an easy process. So look into the resources that you have in your community. What are the palliative care ones? What are, we also have ones that are for aging and disabled people. What do they have to offer? Some will be paid for with your insurance, some will not. But find out what it is, and you may not be aware of that there's a lot more things that can help you. People that have been dealing with somebody disabled over a long period of time knows these things, but if you're new to this, you may not be aware of that there's a lot of things that can help you.
And I just want to take the time to, recognize that, yes, we have networks of our own that PHA provides. We have our support lines and our in-person support groups. But there are, other resources, as Michelle had mentioned, through palliative care and other things. the bottom line is that while you're juggling, you know, being a caregiver and the holidays, and whether it's the holiday time of the year or any other time of the year, it's a matter of being able to find some support for yourself. I've always told people, if it's your first meeting or you're kind of concerned about getting involved in a support group, you don't have to be afraid of talking. You can listen in sometimes, or you can read the chat boards, or even from the convenience of your own home, watching one of our series such as this. We do have PHA Classroom, which is what you are currently viewing. There are more videos and content available in our PHA Classroom on the website, which is phaassociation.org. We will be putting up more information about mental health and about other issues throughout the year. That way you can find resources, you know, to make this journey less of a struggle and less of a challenge, and, you know, bring the resources that you need to yourself. So please, as Michelle said, don't be afraid to reach out to anybody. And there's plenty of people who are involved in the association and through the network of people that are whether they're caregivers or they are patients, that can provide you some of their own experience and learning. So I do want to just take the time to thank Michelle Freeman for being on this webinar. She is incredibly helpful with firsthand experience, and she has provided some phenomenal coping experiences. And I do hope that this can provide some insight for other caregivers. And I just want to thank you again, Michelle, for providing, you know, all of your great tips and information, because it definitely is a step in the right direction for people to be able to learn about caregiver burnout and being able to access this information.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. Thank you.